From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Speaking with the Enemy.
Well, we're just about 35 minutes from kickoff on a very, very sweet Saturday afternoon at Tim Hortons Field, where an outstanding crowd is expected for the Blue Bombers and Tiger Cats. Bubba O'Neill along with Andy Fantuz, and we're here on the Hall of Fame floor, the fourth floor at the stadium for Tiger Cats pregame presented by Greenworks. Folks, we are looking at Speaking with the Enemy presented by Red Tag. Time is now. We're ready to get ahead of the cold winters here in Canada. Look no further than redtag.ca. Picture yourself basking in the warm, sandy shores of a tropical island where worries melt away like the ice in the sun. Don't let winter hold you back. Plan ahead and beach better. Travel made easy with redtag.ca. Well, I know as a working part of the media, this is always a pleasure for me when this man was here interviewing players here in Hamilton, whether it be Ticats or Blue Bombers, and it is certainly a pleasure for me to bring on the longtime voice of the Blue Bombers. Did it for 47 years, and he's a member of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame media wing on a special day on the Hall of Fame game. Bob Irving, always a pleasure to have you on the broadcast.
Well, it's my pleasure entirely, guys. I'm looking forward to this matchup today. The Bombers have had problems in Hamilton in recent years, so I'm curious to see if they can turn that around today.
Do you think, at least in last year's situation, is there any chance, and I know this is a well-coached football team, that they just mentally, we're human beings, that they kind of take the Tiger Cats lightly?
I don't know if it's taking them lightly or not. I know last year they were coming off a huge victory. Had a 10-1 record, went into Hamilton, and I don't think they played their best game, obviously, but the Tiger Cats were outstanding in that game. I don't think they'll take them lightly. As a matter of fact, last year they were 12-1 when they went into Hamilton, so I don't think they'll take them lightly. The focus in Winnipeg all this week with the Bombers has been, let's not let happen again what happened last year, and that's come off a big win, go to Hamilton, and then get smacked by the Ticats. So, you know, this team has shown in the last 3 or 4 years that when they're mentally focused and have their heads in the right place, they're very difficult to beat. And I think they will be in that situation today where they're focused properly and aren't taking anybody lightly. And that's really been what they've been preaching all week. So, no, I don't think they'll take Hamilton lightly. All you have to do is look at what Hamilton did a couple of weeks ago where they went into BC and beat the Lions and beat them handily. That's a reminder that this Hamilton team can be, I know it hasn't been all year, but can be very dangerous.
Bob, what can you say about the difference in the Labor Day Classic in Saskatchewan to the Banjo Bowl? Like, what happened in those 7 days?
Well, you know, playing that game in Regina, and Andy Fantuz, you know all about this, that's a real challenge for the Bombers on any given year. The atmosphere and all the rest of it, and of course the riders get cranked up for that game like no other. And the Bombers weren't at their best on that day. Who knows why, right? They're a very good team, but they're not great every week. And I think they played very poorly in many areas in that game, and they got beat. And so, and of course, the Robertson hit on Collaros was much talked about and had the Bombers, and in particular, Zach Collaros, fired up for the rematch. And then the Riders, come into IG Field where the fans are, a huge weapon on the side of the Blue Bombers. And the Bombers were really cranked up to amend what had happened the week before, and it just got away from Saskatchewan. Things like that happened. The Bombers started scoring early and often. The Riders couldn't match their intensity, their execution, and all the rest of it, and we had a 51-6 blowout. And the Bombers are capable of that. I've seen them do it, 2 or 3 times every year. When they get everything clicking, they'll blow the doors off you.
When's the last time you saw a win that impressive, though, really in all 3 phases?
I can't remember the last time I saw a win that impressive in all 3 phases. I mean, the first half, the first 6 possessions, they scored touchdowns. Yeah. Think about that for a minute. It was just, it was overpowering. And you get that. First of all, to do that, you have to have a really, really good football team, which the Bombers have. And then you have to I won't say luck, but you have to have everything going your way, which they did. But I don't recall the last time I saw anything like that. And I saw this Bomber team since 2019 score some impressive wins, but not one quite like that. And I go back, as you said at the beginning, to the 70s, 80s, 90s, Cal Murphy's time in the 80s and 90s. They had some really good teams, but I've never seen anything like that.
What is the most, what is the strength of this Bombers team, and are there any weaknesses, and if so, what are they?
I can't identify a weakness. I get asked that periodically, even though I've been retired now for a couple of years. I still keep a close eye on this team. And the one weakness they had going into the game last week was their kick returning and their kick coverage, which had been a strength of theirs for years. And their kick coverage this year, and recently in particular, had not been very good, but it was good last week. Their kick return game is not there. With Jannary and Grant injured, they just don't have a returner who can come close to what he provided them. So that's the one area where I think they've been a bit vulnerable. But their pass defense, their run defense, their ability to run the ball and pass the ball have all been top notch. So if you want to find a weakness on this team, I would say to you, good luck. I don't see one that is glaring. They can be vulnerable at times to the run, but they've been better with that lately. So, yeah, look, they're 10-3. It's the 7th straight season. They've had double-figure wins. They've been in the playoffs 7 years in a row. Here's a stat for you, and this doesn't apply so much to this year, but the last 53 games the Bombers have played, including playoffs and Grey Cup, they've won 43 of them. They're 43-10 in their last 53, and Zach Collaros, including regular season and playoffs, is 42-8 as a starting quarterback. So do they have a weakness now? Not an identifiable one. That doesn't mean they couldn't get beat today. But they're pretty good, and they've been pretty good since late in 2019.
What about that defense? I mean, they've been known for the front four for the past few years, but it seems like almost the strength has been shifting into the secondary this year. Do you agree with that, or can you talk a bit about the defense?
Well, I think the secondary is the best in the league. I really believe that. But the front seven's still pretty good. You got number 5 there on one end, Willie Jefferson. Jackson Jeffcoat won't play today, and that weakens them up front, in my opinion, because I think he's an all-star every time he's on the field. But they have a rookie named Celestin Haba, who was very good before Jeffcoat came back from injury, and they had to take him off the field. The middle with Jake Thomas anchoring things is solid. You got Adam Bighill still at middle linebacker. Kyrie Wilson came back from an Achilles injury that he suffered last year at one of the linebacker spots, and he's been really good. So, defensively they're solid, but really their secondary has just been outstanding this year. And all 5 back there are rock-solid players. So, yeah, I think their secondary is as good, and in my opinion, probably the best in the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. So looking at from the outside, if you're looking at this Hamilton team, what's kind of your take on them so far this season? Strengths, weaknesses?
Well, I know they've been a disappointment to the fans in Hamilton with the 5-7 record. I know their record at home is 1-5, which is kind of hard to explain. They should be able to use Tim Hortons Field as an advantage. I've been impressed lately with Taylor Powell. I know, they're down to their 3rd quarterback here, and it's really too bad that Bo Levi got hurt not once but twice and I know he threw a lot of picks when he did play, but I was curious to see once he got familiar with all the receivers there and kind of got in the flow how he'd do. But Taylor Powell in the last 3 games has been really good. The game in BC that they won, he was impressive. 7 touchdowns, 1 pick in the last 3 games, and 2 of those 3 have been against Toronto and BC. So, yeah, I'm impressed with Powell. Tim White, of course, outstanding. James Butler is a terrific running back. Their defense, I know maybe they expect a little more from their defense than they're getting. They haven't been as consistent as they'd like to be. I still see them, when the season began, I saw them as a team to be reckoned with in the East. Now they're down to their 3rd quarterback, and you have to wonder about that a bit. If Powell can keep playing at that level, will Bo Levi come back? And they've been just horribly inconsistent. But I don't know. They're a team to me that is a bit of a sleeper in the East. I still see them that way. And I think when all is said and done, at the end of the season, they might be the team that's playing in Toronto in the East Final.
Well, you've probably seen your fair share of teams going down to the third string and quarterbacks playing well. What do you do when Bo Levi does come back or Matthew Schultz is fully healthy? Well, what have you seen in the past, I guess?
Yeah, when Bo Levi comes back, you play him, right? I don't know. You've invested a lot in that guy. And, again, I know he threw a bunch of picks in the games he did play earlier, but I don't think you give up on him at this point. He's still your guy that you go to. But if Taylor Powell keeps playing the way he's playing, it's going to be a tough decision for Orlando Steinauer in a lot of ways, because Powell really has come on and looks like a guy who belongs in there. I know it's a small sample size, and he's going to have to play a few more games before you're totally sold on him. And this game today will be a terrific test for him. But, I think Bo Levi, with his track record, and I know, again, last year he wasn't great, and there's a lot of people out there who feel his best days are behind him. But if I'm Orlando Steinauer and our quarterbacks are struggling a bit when he's healthy in particular, it's a no-brainer. And even if they're playing well, I don't know how you said, put him in uniform as a backup. I just don't know how you do that.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing as early as Calgary, which is 2 weeks, but who knows when he'll be back. But if Taylor Powell can come out with a victory today and then go into Toronto next week and get another victory, I don't know how you can pull him.
Andy, stop it. Stop it.
No, that's a good argument, I guess. But I go back again to Bo Levi's history and what you invested in him this year. When he's healthy, I don't see how he doesn't play.
I think Andy wants to be the head coach.
Oh, no.
He's joining us from the Manitoba capital, the longtime voice of the Blue Bombers. Still highly invested, as you can hear, in that football team, and a member of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame media wing. Bob Irving, a pleasure for us to have you aboard on the Ticats Audio Network and the Tiger Cats pregame show presented by Greenworks. Appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.